much. She didn't need to look up to know it was him. His presence was overwhelming, filling the room with an air of dominance that made her feel like a prey. I heard the news, Jungkook said, his deep voice calm, almost satisfied. He closed the door behind him and walked towards her, his footsteps slow and deliberate. Jungkook stopped in front of her, crouching down as he could meet her downcast eyes. "You should be happy," he said softly, though his tone lacked genuine warmth. "You are carrying my child." Her head snapped up, her eyes blazing with anger despite the tears streaming down her cheeks. "Happy?" she spat, her voice breaking. "You think I should be happy about this? You forced this on me, Jungkook. You took away my choice." Jungkook stood, his dark eyes narrowing as he looked down at her. "You agree to this. You know the moment you said yes, that your life would be mine to shape. Don't act like a victim now." Her laughter was bitter, filled with pain. "You think this is marriage? You think this is love? You have done nothing but break me, Jungkook. I hate you." The word hit him like a dagger, but he masked his emotion behind a cold smirk. "Hate me all you want," he said, his voice icy. "It doesn't change anything. You are mine, and so is that child." Hwayeon's hands clenched into fists, her nails digging into her palm. "You have ruined me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I will never forgive you for this. Never." "You will forgive me," he said quietly, his voice low and dangerous, "because you won't have a choice. You will learn to accept this. Hwayeon, you will learn to accept me." She wrenched her face away from his grip, her chest waving with emotions. "You are a monster," she whispered. Jungkook straightened, his expression unreadable. "Perhaps," he said simply, "but even monsters get what they want." He turned and walked toward the door, his presence lingering in the room even after he left. Hwayeon collapsed into the bed, her sobs breaking free as she clutched her stomach. She hated him, hated what he had done to her. But more than that, she hated herself for feeling the faintest flicker of warmth when she thought of the life growing inside her. It wasn't the child's fault. It wasn't the baby's fault that they were conceived in darkness. And despite her hatred for Jungkook, Hwayeon couldn't bring herself to hate the innocent life that had now depended on her. She cried herself to sleep that night, the weight of a situation crushing her. The quiet cries of a newborn filled the room, blending with the sound of Hwayeon's labored breath. She lay exhausted on the hospital bed, her arms trembling as she held her son for the first time. Eunwoo's tiny face was scrunched up, his soft whimpers grounding her in the moment even as she felt the heavy weight of her reality settle back in. Standing beside her, Jungkook looked down at the child with an unreadable expression. "He is perfect," he murmured, reaching out to touch the baby's head. Hwayeon didn't respond. She held Eunwoo closer, her body instinctively shielding him. The tension in the room was palpable, but she was too tired to fight. "You should rest," Jungkook said, his tone soft but firm. "You will need your strength. There is a long road ahead of us." His words sent a shiver down her spine, and though she didn't say anything, she knew what he meant. As months passed, Hwayeon poured her love and attention into Eunwoo. He became a reason for enduring, her only source of light in a world that felt increasingly suffocating. Jungkook, however, seemed oblivious to the cracks in her spirit. One evening, as she rocked Eunwoo to sleep, Jungkook entered the room. His presence was commanding, his voice steady. He said, "We need to talk." She didn't look at him, focusing instead on her son's peaceful face. "What is it?" "It's time for a sibling," he said bluntly. "Eunwoo deserves a brother or a sister." Her heart sank. Slowly she turned to face him, her expression mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. "No," she said quietly, "I can't." "You will," he replied, his tone unyielding. "This is what's best for our family." Her voice broke as she whispered, "You don't understand. I am barely holding on it is." His expression hardened. "You will manage. You have done well so far." Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She turned away, clutching Eunwoo tightly as a silent war waged inside her. The weight of Jungkook expectations pressed down on 𝐌𝐚, growing heavier with each passing days. She felt trapped, her world shrinking until there was nothing left but walls and silence. One night, unable to bear it any longer, she locked herself in the bathroom. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, her face pale and hollow. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the sink, her mind clouded with despair. Her thoughts spiraled. I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this. She drowned herself deeper in the bathtub, holding her breath. She remembered Unwo's face, who is the light of a world, but unfortunately, she couldn't become the mother he deserved. Leaving him alone in this tough world was difficult for 𝐌𝐚. Suddenly, a knock on the door shattered her thought. 𝐌𝐚, Jungkook called from the other side. Open the door. She didn't respond. Her breathing quickened. The sound of the lock breaking startled her, and the door swung open. Jungkook stood there, his expression a mix of anger and concern. What are you doing? He demanded, stepping closer. She collapsed to the floor, her body racked with sobs. I can't live like this, Jungkook, she cried. I feel like I am drowning. Please just let me go. The night 𝐌𝐚 broke down in the bathroom haunted Jungkook like a recurring nightmare. He couldn't forget the look in her eyes, despair so deep it threatened to consume her. The realization that she had reached such a breaking point because of him stuck him like a knife in his chest, leaving him gasping for air in the dark silence of the mansion. He sat in Unwo's nursery that night, the baby asleep in his crib. The soft sound of his son breathe should have been a comfort, but it only deepened the ache in Jungkook's heart. What have I done? He whispered, his voice barely audible over the quiet hum of the room. He leaned forward, his elbow on his knees, a buried face in his hand. Memories flooded back of 𝐌𝐚 laughter before everything had gone wrong. The fire in her eyes when she challenged him. The quiet moment they used to share. He thought he had been protecting her, keeping her safe by building a life for them where she couldn't live. But now he saw the truth. He had imprisoned her, suffocated her, and broken the very person he claimed to love. I am the reason she is hurting, he murmured, his voice cracking. The weight of his action pressed down on him, suffocating and relentless. The next morning, Jungkook hesitated outside the bedroom door. He had spent the night crafting excuses, trying to justify his behavior, but none of them held up under the crushing realities of 𝐌𝐚 pain. When he finally entered, 𝐌𝐚 was sitting on the bed, her face pale and her eyes hollow. She barely acknowledged his presence, her arm wrapped protectively around herself as if bracing against him. He stepped closer, his heart heavy with guilt. 𝐌𝐚, he began, his voice low and unsteady. I need to say something. She didn't respond, her gaze fixed on the window. I have been blind, he admitted, his hand clenching at his side. Blind to what I have done to you. I thought I was building something good for us, for Unwo, but I have only been tearing you apart. Her head turned slightly, her brows furrowing in disbelief. I see it now, he continued, his voice trembling. I see the pain in your eyes, the exhaustion in your body, and I know I am the one who put it there. He swallowed hard, his throat tightening as tear pricked his eyes. I told myself I loved you, but love doesn't look like this. It doesn't hurt like this. I have destroyed everything good between us, he said, his voice breaking. I have taken your freedom, your joy, your light, and the last night, seeing you like that. He looked away ashamed. I realized how far I have gone, how much I have failed you. Her voice was barely above a whisper, raw and unbroken. Why are you saying this now? I can't bear to see you suffer anymore, he admitted, tears finally spilling down his cheeks. Because I love you, 𝐌𝐚, and if I really love you, I have to let you go. Threw himself into making arrangements for 𝐌𝐚 and Unwo to leave. He sold property, closed accounts, and prepared everything they would need to start over far away. Each action felt like a knife to his heart, but he forced himself to endure it. Late at night, he sat in the empty nursery, his hands shaking as he held a photo of 𝐻𝐚 and 𝐼𝐚. I wanted us to be a family, he whispered to the empty room, but I destroyed any chance of that. The guilt gnawed at him relentlessly. He couldn't undo the years of pain he had caused her, couldn't erase the scars he had left, but he could give her a chance to heal, even if meant sacrificing his own happiness. The memory of her departure was overcast, the sky mirroring the heaviness in Jungkook's heart. He stood by the mansion gate as the car pulled up, watching silently as 𝐻𝐚 stepped out, carrying 𝐼𝐚 in her arms. She looked at him, her expression guarded but softer than he expected. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice tinged with cautious disbelief. "Because I love you," he said simply, his voice thick with emotion, "and because I have realized that love means letting you choose your own path." Tears welled in her eyes as she adjusted 𝐼𝐚 in her arms. "I don't know if I can forgive you for everything," she admitted honestly. "I don't expect you to," he replied, his voice breaking, "but I hope one day you will find peace, even if it's without me." She hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Thank you," she said quietly. As she climbed into the car, Jungkook took a step back, his hands trembling at his sides. He watched as the vehicle disappeared down the road, carrying away the two people he loved the most in the world.